The Dharam Yudh Pipeline is a Panthic initiative aiming at reviving the Guru Khalsa's historic and intended role as a force of security, defence and justice. Developed as part of Bunga Azaadi's grand strategy, the DYP outlines a structured approach to empower Sikhs with the necessary skills and competencies required to operate in the modern age. Through 3 key stages, the pipeline seeks to cultivate a new generation of skilled, principled Khalsa Sikhs who can uphold GurMat, defend the oppressed, and foster environments where individuals are free to pursue Mukti in peace, free from tyranny, Khalsa Raaj. The Dharam Yudh Pipeline envisions that the formation of Khalsa-led entities such as private military and security companies, PMSCs, private law firms, PLFs, and other such entities that operate ethically within international legal frameworks. By restoring the Khalsa's capacity to be world leaders in security and justice, the Dharam Yudh Pipeline seeks to re-establish a modernised Misl System as per an Azadist reconception. Whilst Bunga Azaadi will contribute to this mission, building the Dharam Yudh Pipeline is being offered as a collective responsibility. We invite Panthic organisations, representatives and dedicated individuals from the Sangat to collaborate with us by supporting advocacy efforts and building networks within key institutions. Together, we can strengthen the Guru Khalsa Panth, honour the legacy of our Gurus and Shaheeds and create a future where Khalsa Raj is not just a vague aspiration but a practical reality. Before calculating a route, you must first define the destination. Bunga Azaadi has been developing a Vichar repository, knowledge base collecting modern and traditional wisdom in service of the Guru Khalsa Panth. As part of this, we have been conducting and curating quality Vichars in various areas related to forging the mindset ready to do Raj, from developing a whole Sikhi-based political economic philosophy, Azadism, to understanding the deeper components of Sikhi itself, not just the basics. This is an effort to help revive the kind of Sikh intelligentsia that had been established during the Anandpur Darbar of Sri Guru Gobind Singh, which brought together the best knowledge and wisdom of the time related to all sorts of subjects from political science, healthcare, Rag Vidya and more. It was from this environment of excellence that crafted the mindsets of the Khalsa, who went on to establish the first Sikh republics, misls and kingdoms. Inspired by this, Bunga Azaadi has been working to replicate similar efforts to raise the discourse surrounding the topic of Azaadi in the Panth. For us, Azaadi can be viewed from 2 perspectives, Miri and Biri. At a high working level, true Azaadi from the Biri perspective is attaining a state of Mukti, literally translating to liberation, specifically a liberation of the Atma from the illusion of duality to ultimately realise its true nature as Paramatma, when the sense of a separate self diminishes and the recognition is cultivated that all things are fundamentally one existence-ness, displaying itself in a myriad of different apparent forms. In such a state, you become free from suffering and pleasure, paap and pun, and even time and death itself. You become akal and bring death to duality. From a Miri perspective, Khalsa Raj is then fundamentally an environment in which those seeking to pursue Mukti can do so in peace, free from tyranny and oppression. The Khalsa itself being a vehicle in which to achieve and maintain such a system, by virtue of being Akal Purkh Ki Fauj, the army of Akal. Whilst publicly, we have been developing a detailed vision of how that Khalsa Raj could work, the where question. Behind the scenes, that we have been iterating a roadmap on how to get there, the how question. This white paper details a single component of a wider grand strategy that has been developed and being progressed. Whilst the full plan is not yet ready for public release, we wish to share this particular aspect of it now in preparation for later phases. It is a long-term plan, multi-phase and even multi-generational too, but the end goal is Azaadi. Not all of it requires Rola, and much of it will stay gupt for now. There is little point in openly discussing the how question until enough of us agree on the where question, hence the point of our outputs publicly thus far. What we are doing in private are planting seeds of trees that we in our lifetimes might not taste the fruits of, but we may be able to sit in their shade before the tree begins to bear all its fruits, depending on the Panth's commitment. We believe such an ambition is part and parcel of being initiated into and becoming a member of the Khalsa. So much so that it is the duty or dharam of every single core to work towards achieving Khalsa Raj in some way, shape or form. But we are not necessarily talking about just nation states here. Again, we define Khalsa Raj as an environment in which those seeking to pursue Mukti can do so in peace, free from tyranny and oppression. This can be achievable on local and global scales, perhaps one day interplanetary too, in new nations or existing ones, or even new world orders entirely. The key is for the Khalsa to become influential, wherever we plant our feet, so to improve societies for the better and enable them to become more azad. In terms of realpolitik, to achieve this and to exert influence on this scale, the Khalsa must re-establish both its hard and soft power. But why is this necessary? Frankly, the modern Khalsa is a shell of its former self. It is plagued by inactivity, docility and purposelessness. There isn't even a general recognition of the Khalsa's status as the Guru anymore either. This makes it easy for perverse agendas to hijack the Panth, to manipulate and mislead. So many distractions have emerged to divide the Khalsa's attention towards meaningless things away from its intended purpose of combating injustices and establishing liberty. As a consequence, so much preventable suffering is going unchecked, and this is in part our fault. It is all good telling ourselves internally that we are warrior Panth and getting dressed up to just go sit in a rent by, but it is very different to actually saving people stuck in war zones, providing relief in disasters, holding human rights violators on trial and combating terrorism. In an era where you find more things in nightclubs than you do in gun clubs, the posturing that we are the descendants of Shaheeds and Akal Burki Fauj rings hollow. It is a nishani of a people with no purpose to degenerate in such a way. When societies are faced with an existential threat, they must band together despite differences or die. We too may now die, if not physically, consciously. For many it seems they are already dead in this way. For us, this is a serious concern, for the longevity of the Panth, but also an insult to our Guru who gave so much to establish the Khalsa in this world, only for it to be considered largely irrelevant today and incapable of contesting injustices. It is all extremely disappointing and embarrassing. We must refuse to allow the legacy of our Shaheeds to be tarnished in such ways. This Panth is on the brink in the advent of this new century and millennium. We must decide our own trajectory for the next few centuries, or have it decided for us. Hence the need to find purpose, have a mission and pursue a goal. As the Khalsa, we do not need to be lost in this. We have already been given a purpose by the Guru and been raised to their status to pursue it autonomously. It is a Dharam of the Khalsa to wage righteous war, Dharam Yudh, against the enemies of Azaadi. But tactfully, there is no point becoming some unsophisticated guerrilla Taliban-like force, not only because the groups being emulated in this fashion behave immorally and antithetically to the Khalsa ethos, and have even been our own private enemies in the past, but it's also unstrategic. If you go down that route, you cut off your own legs. Instead, there is a way we can pursue Dharam Yudh and establish Khalsa Raaj without breaking international law, reducing ourselves to immorality by breaching human rights, or violating the non-aggression principle NAP, despite what clueless extremists may tell you. Resorting to unsophisticated and reactionary tactics that mimic the methodologies of today's terrorist organizations will not only undermine the Khalsa's ethos, but it also risks isolating us from potential powerful allies in the current world order, and thereby it disables our ability to leverage so many more opportunities and instead decreases the longevity and effectiveness of our effort to create lasting, wide-scale change. It would also vastly tarnish the reputation of any movements we seek to implement. Whilst guerrilla-type warfare was indeed used in our history by Khalsa forces, these were a last resort effort to ensure the survival of Sikhs against brutal, tyrannical regimes. For those times, it can be justified as efforts out of desperation, or even just how the world worked back then. But what can never be justified then, now or in the future is the targeting of non-combatants to pursue a political cause. This is textbook terrorism, and the Khalsa must not only just distance ourselves from proponents of such cowardly and dishonourable methods, but denounce anyone claiming to promote it in our name. In an age of information warfare, optics is critical. As a modern alternative, there exists a more strategic and a moral pathway, one that allows us to fulfill our mission of justice and protection while remaining fully within the bounds of international law and human rights standards. This approach not only preserves the dignity and moral foundation of the Khalsa, but also ensures that we can wield influence on a global scale without compromising our values and capacity for long-term impact. This pathway is the private military security company model. By establishing Khalsa-led PMSCs, the Khalsa can operate largely independently as a non-state private entities acting as a force for justice and global security, adhering to a strict ethical mandate rooted in the principles of Miri Biri. PMSCs as private service providers for security and defence offer a versatile and lawful means of pursuing Dharam Yudh, allowing the Khalsa to engage in security and humanitarian efforts to protect vulnerable communities and uphold justice in a way that resonates with the teachings of the Guru. PMSCs are not a new phenomenon. They are the latest iteration of one of the oldest industries in human history, where non-state actors provide essential services in conflict and security. While the concept has existed for a while, the modern incarnation of PMSCs has seen rapid expansion and adaptation, evolving into a significant force in today's global security landscape. In 2021, the global PMSC market was valued at $241.7 billion, with projections suggesting it could reach $366.8 billion by 2028. This growth is driven by an increasing reliance on private entities to fill security roles traditionally occupied by state forces, particularly in conflict zones where governments are either unwilling or unable to deploy their own resources. There are hundreds or thousands of PMSCs worldwide, many of which operate within legal frameworks and collaborate closely with entities like the United Nations and NGOs to contribute to stability and security. Countries such as the United States, United Kingdom, China and South Africa host around 70% of the PMSC sector, making these private companies influential players in global security. Whilst most PMSCs operate within the law, the industry as a whole is often tainted by controversies, as some firms have been implicated in unethical activities, political collusion and human rights abuses. This reputation poses both a challenge and an opportunity. A challenge because the industry's reputation is mixed, but an opportunity because it allows for the creation of a Khalsa-led alternative, a PMSC model that exemplifies integrity, transparency and a commitment to justice. For the Khalsa, there is significant potential to redefine this space by embodying a PMSC model that adheres to a clear ethical standard, distinguishing itself from those entities that operate with questionable motives. By grounding our approach in the non-aggression principle, which emphasizes the right of every individual to live freely as long as they do not infringe upon the right for others to do the same, Khalsa-led PMSCs can bring a new paradigm to the security industry. This model would operate not solely out of a desire for power or profit, but out of the Khalsa's historical mandate to be a Gharpur-ki Fauj, a force that safeguards those who seek to live in peace and pursue Mukti. So here is an opportunity to offer a Khalsa alternative and establish a pipeline for Sikhs to enter the industry and become market leaders on the basis of our Miri-Piri philosophy. There is a huge opportunity here for the Khalsa, and it is something we are urging the Panth not to fall behind on and have to play catch up on later like we are doing now with nation state projects. But to what end? To reiterate, Khalsa Raaj is being defined not as just another nation state but with a Sikhi theme instead. Rather, it is an environment in which those pursuing Mukti can do so free from oppression and tyranny. It is not about imposing, coercing and threatening populations to behave in certain ways or succumb to the micromanagement of just another group of central planners. It is about establishing free societies where people can define their own destinies, suffer from the consequences of their own choices so that they may fail fast, learn, iterate and improve. But above all, we wish to enable secure and just environments in which those seeking to pursue Mukti can do so in peace. Azadism has presented a model for statecraft in which this can be organised, but it needs a conscious force of those trained and capable in weaponry to help uphold the non-aggression principle. Whilst our aim is to plant a garden of freedom, we wish for the Khalsa to be the gardeners that pluck out those weeds and pests who destroy the freedom of others. Now the details of how these environments may be structured goes outside the scope of this white paper, and the specific implementation plan is covered in other areas of the grand strategy. However, you can look into the Stanistan model we have published for a hint of what we eventually vision in the long term. Another model Azadism put forth was a vision for a modernised Misl System, developed by learning both the successes and failures from when the last time with Khalsa tried that system. This will also be further outlined in depth in a more comprehensive Vijal being produced currently, but you can learn a bit about how it may work in the long term in section 5 of the Azadist manifesto. The two main tweaks compared to how we tried it before is that instead of having missiles be based on territory and taxes, they would now be operating on a client, Sangat, and a subscription or some voluntary form of payment or Daswand basis. Whereas before, a missile would have exclusive jurisdiction within particular land boundaries, under this conception, multiple missiles can coexist in the same areas serving many clients living together. A single household may subscribe to multiple missiles offering security services. A city-state may host hundreds of missiles operating to serve clients living there who may subscribe to various missiles of their choice. Instead of a missile being a state structure, it is focused directly on being a service provider for security and/or justice. Neither do they all need to be PMSCs either. In modern times, many types of companies in this sector can be formed by the Khalsa, where members band together in voluntary hierarchies, hence companies, not states, in which individual Khalsa can leave at any time, apply elsewhere or start their own missile, forming private military/security companies, PMSCs, private law firms, PLFs, conflict resolution organisations, CROs, private courts of law, etc. All independent, private, non-state entities in the business of providing justice and security. These are the missiles being referred to in Azadism's reconception of a new and improved Misl System. How this system can be integrated into statecraft and governance again is not the focus of this white paper, but we don't need to wait for the long-term vision of the Stanistan model to be implemented before establishing this new Misl System. We can and should start setting up missiles now, especially to build the actual competency before we reach that stage. Sikhs, or more accurately Gursikhs, who rightly recognise the Khalsa as Guru, should be the support system for the Khalsa operating in this way. From this population, we seek to empower Gursikhs to become effective members of the Khalsa that actually go and do Dharam Yudh and progress Khalsa Raaj. As I mentioned, it is the Khalsa's duty to advance and enable Khalsa Raaj in some way, shape or form. It doesn't have to be just the role of a battlefield soldier, especially in modern times. Instead, a Dharam Yudh can be engaged in many ways, such as lawyers, judges, cybersecurity professionals, analysts, intelligence operatives and much more, so long as they operate in accordance to Dharam. Even Sikhs living a Gristi Jeevan can contribute towards Khalsa Raaj and participate in Dharam Yudh by becoming successful and wealthy so that they can donate more Swan to the Khalsa Misls, who are more directly addressing problems. In order to enable this vision, we must establish a system that increases the Khalsa's competency. Therefore, the following Dharam Yudh Pipeline has been prepared and offered as a way to do this. The Dharam Yudh Pipeline onboards Gursikhs from one end, puts them through and gives them access to the relevant training, licensing and experience before outputting them as fully qualified Khalsa Sikhs, ready and competent to establish missiles, conduct missions, arbitrate disputes, provide security and enact justice. The Dharam Yudh Pipeline is structured into 3 stages that represent a progressive pathway to transform Sikhs into capable professionals in security, defence and justice. Each stage of the pipeline is designed to prepare participants for the responsibilities they will take on in the next phase, ensuring a comprehensive and eventually a sustainable self-reliant model where Sikhs in later stages can help uplift and provide opportunity to others in previous stages. The ingestion stage focuses on identifying and recruiting Sikhs who have an interest in security and justice but lack formal experience or direction. At this stage, the goal is to attract blank slates, Sikhs open to exploring non-traditional career paths beyond the academic or other conventional jobs. To do this advocacy, we can start leveraging the connections and intellectual capital we've been building with Bunga Azaadi and use that as a base of operations in which we devise various strategies to encourage participation in the forces, police, security and justice industry. Through this, we can start building that internal Panthic talent pool right now. We want to shift the culture among Sikhs to value these career paths highly and seek opportunities to gain the necessary exposure and experience. We should disassociate from the image that Sikhs are farmers and re-establish the image that Sikhs are warriors, but with actual substance. Special focus will be placed on Sikhs who are searching for non-academic career paths and want to engage in meaningful work that aligns with Sikh values. The aim is to channel their Bidas warrior energy into constructive roles, preventing them from being drawn to gangs or cult-like organisations led by Masans who have no desire for true Azadi and want to trap Sikhs into victim mindsets. We'll also contest certain unproductive narratives from Neo-Khalistanis in particular, who are trying to deter Sikhs from entering these roles. The fact is, it is very difficult to start PMSCs especially, and take on contracts without prior experience in the armed forces or police. Whilst attitudes like "we don't work under anyone" is seductive, it isn't productive. We are simply not in a position to have these types of knuckle right now. People are dying. Therefore, we have to kill our ego a bit in the meantime, gain the necessary skills and experiences, work within the current system so that we can extract the value we need to operate more on our own terms later with our own industry of Khalsa missiles. There is an element of jiu-jitsu with this. You have to give a bit now to take a lot later. Look at the generations of immigrant diaspora Sikhs who left their farms to work in substandard conditions and take menial jobs in foreign lands. This was far from ideal, but they did it anyway so that their children became the doctors, lawyers and successful businessmen of today. This is the art of the compromise, the trade of sacrifice. Obviously, there are limits, but you cannot refuse to play the game and still expect to win. This is what Rajniti is really about, not mindless protests, making signs and begging outside of parliaments or embassies for Raj. You have to make the sacrifices and put in the work. Take Raj, don't be given it. Once individuals have been onboarded, they can proceed to the second stage of training and gaining qualifications and experience. During the first run of this pipeline, this isn't provided internally by the Panth just yet though. As mentioned, there is simply not enough resource or capabilities to offer such things to Sangat. Instead, we must leverage existing opportunities to participate in institutions and forces. As a Panth, we are such fools for not only taking up these opportunities to get world-class modern training, but also be paid for it. This will give Sikhs the required skills and credentials to then go and take up more specific training for private military/security contracting. You can take some of these courses right now too. There are companies that offer them to civilians. But the issue is that it is very difficult to subsequently get hired without a military/police background and actual experience. Just think about it from a client's perspective. If they need someone to protect them or their family in a hostile environment, would they hire someone who is a veteran and been in real combat scenarios, or someone who has done a couple of courses within the safety of controlled environments? Training is good, qualifications are validating, but experience is best. There is no better credential than experience. By this stage, we would have built a talent pool of Khalsa Panthis who are skilled, qualified and experienced enough to go and take private contracts, consult and or start their own missiles, be that PMSCs, PLFs, CROs or whatever other path they chose to specialise in during the previous stage. Activities could range from maritime security, executive protection, asset recovery, anti-poaching initiatives, humanitarian aid and relief, human rights law enforcement, arbitrating property rights disputes, peacekeeping, cybersecurity, neighbourhood patrols and so much more. The security, defence and justice sector is vast and varied. Missiles could also be employed for internal use as well, such as 24/7 Gurdwara Beradars that match or exceed the quality of the types of security details world leaders have. We all pay the lip service of calling our Guru Khalsa the King of Kings, yet we house so many swoops in old factory buildings sitting on plastic balconies with no real security at all. Yet mere worldly prime ministers and presidents are constantly monitored over by elite professionals. By rebuilding the Khalsa's competency, we too should invest in such measures. Once we have our own missile system running again, then they will be able to onboard Sangha directly and train them too, as well as employ them for missions and contracts. For more legal related missiles, this may take the form of establishing Sikh law firms and prioritising and hiring Sikh professionals. This will reduce reliance on external organisations to train and qualify our Panth, and the pipeline can transition into a more self-reliant structure. However, even then, it may be useful to maintain productive relations with allies. This may take many forms such as joint training, war games, intel sharing, contracting, consulting and perhaps even foreign legion type models could be incorporated. Becoming too insular at this stage would be a mistake. Isolationism is not a synonym for self-reliance. This final stage of the pipeline will usher the Panth in a new missile era, as per the Azadist reconception for a capable and modernised missile system. Once here, this will allow us to be well poised to implement the next phase of our grand strategy for Khalsa Raaj. The Dharam Yudh Pipeline is a call to action for the whole Guru Khalsa Panth. By re-establishing our capabilities across security, defence and justice sectors, the Dharam Yudh Pipeline enables us to build a Khalsa that is once again equipped to defend the oppressed, uphold justice and secure environments where individuals are free to pursue Mukti without fear of oppression or tyranny. Through this structured pipeline, we can ensure that future generations of Sikhs are not only skilled and competent, but operate in accordance with the timeless principles of Miri Bidi. Yet, the success of this vision depends not solely on a single organisation or individual. Building the Dharam Yudh Pipeline is a Panthic responsibility that encourages collective commitment from the entire Sangat. While Bunga Azaadi will contribute to this effort as much as we can, we recognise that the scale and scope of this pipeline will only be realised through the collaboration of diverse Sikh organisations, Sangat representatives and dedicated individuals who resonate with this mission. We encourage all Panthic-minded Sikhs from various backgrounds, organisations and even those acting as individuals to join us in setting up this vital structure. To achieve this, we need supporters and collaborators across the Sangat. These partners can support the advocacy efforts by running stalls, creating content, hosting workshops at Gurdwaras, giving talks at university Sikh societies, establishing relationships with law enforcement, military institutions, law firms and others in the security and justice sectors. Together we can create networks to support Sikhs at each stage of the pipeline, building the necessary foundation to develop a competent, modern and self-sustaining Khalsa infrastructure. This is more than an individual or organisational endeavour, and whilst it is a part of our grand strategy to introduce the concept of a Dharam Yudh Pipeline, Bunga Azaadi does not own it. Instead, the Dharam Yudh Pipeline is being offered as a gift. It is a Panthic movement aimed at reinvigorating our collective purpose, competence and influence. Our Gurus and Shaheeds left us with a legacy of selfless service, excellence and apotheosis. Now, in this new millennium, we have the opportunity to honour that legacy by revitalising the Khalsa in a way that is relevant, powerful and deeply aligned with the spiritual, political and immortal vision of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji to Guru Gobind Singh. We invite you to join us. Let us work together to build a Panth that is not only prepared to protect and serve, but also to inspire and lead, creating a future where Khalsa Raaj is not just an aspiration, but a practical reality grounded in the wisdom of our Gurus and the strength of our people. If you or your organisation would like to get involved, please reach out to us to discuss how we can collaborate. The journey to Azaadi and the establishing of Khalsa Raaj is one that we walk together, and it's our collective efforts that will determine the success of this mission. We do not have to be uniform to be united, but those of us who share this vision must indeed unite now, or risk dooming our Panth into irrelevancy over the centuries to come. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Sri Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.